What's up guys, Spin Firearms here, and today we are going to be talking about everyday carry triggers, right? And the main reason for that is there's a lot of debate on it. And it's really weird. You watch some review channels and they're using some firearms that have crazy triggers, right? And they recommend them for everyday carry. Then you talk about other people saying how you shouldn't have a super light, super short trigger for everyday carry. Then you have some people say, oh, you shouldn't modify them, but then you look at their firearm that they carry, these YouTube influencers, and they have a modified trigger in their firearm. It's all super misleading, and it's very hard to understand, and for a lot of people who take them at their word, it is very hard to make a decision, basically. So today we're going to go over it a little bit, what I do with my triggers and stuff like that, right? First off though, hit the like button, drop a comment down below, subscribe, tell me what you carry, tell me what you think about aftermarket triggers and so on. The number one thing people say about aftermarket triggers is it's going to hurt you in a self-defense encounter. And I would say that is not true. If it's a justified self-defense encounter, your lawyer is going to have a very easy time explaining the fact that a better trigger means more accuracy, which means less casualties other than the target that was trying to harm the person. That is a very easy defense. And on top of that, if it's justified self-defense, it's justified self-defense. But recently, I made a video talking about the Mossberg MC2 SC and how I love the trigger on it, right? For everyday carry. Look at this trigger, right? Nothing special. The weight is like a Glock trigger. Reset is very regular, very normal, nothing special, just tactile and audible. But I said that's the perfect everyday carry trigger for me. I like that. Right, let's check that out one more time. Very crisp, very easy to shoot, very little movement in the firearm. Let's check out the Taurus G3C. All these are always cleared prior. Has all of this take up, but then a very crisp, clean, defined wall, and then a very nice reset, right? Just a normal reset. That's a good everyday carry trigger in my opinion. Let's check out my everyday carry Glock 26, right? Which, by the way, glides like butter. Anyways, it's a spongy trigger. Blah, blah, blah. Whatever, guys. That's a Ghost Avenger connector in there. Crisp, clean, in my opinion, perfect everyday carry trigger. Now here's my FN503 that I pocket carried for 3.5 years, 55 to 60 hours per week, right? Check out this trigger. I thought this was the perfect pocket carry trigger. Very crisp and clean. It's light, but look at this reset. But it was still very easy to shoot. You just don't, get used to a firearm by shooting it once. You have to go out and train and use it every day. Now let's take a look at this Bursa, right? Which you do have to drop the mag, unfortunately. It's clear, and you have to throw that thing right back in because it has a mag disconnect. But look at this trigger, right? Did you just see that? Watch. I mean, it is just, it's stupid almost. Like, look at this, ready? And by stupid, I mean it is so freaking good. But the question is, no trigger safety on that, no dingus. Do you want your reset to be like that? Do you want this to where you're trying to feel a wall, but there basically isn't a wall, it just goes straight into a trigger, like a trigger pull? It's crazy. In my opinion, this is a great firearm, a great shooter, but I could never carry this. Because here's the thing. People go to the range and go, oh yeah, I want to be fast. I want to have the lightest trigger. I want to have the shortest reset. But they don't think about when you're in a self-defense encounter, is that how you're going to be thinking? Are you really going to want the lightest trigger when you're stressed out, freaking out, looking around, your fingers are moving, your brain isn't connecting with every part of your body, you have tunnel vision? No, it doesn't make sense. And so I get trigger snobs and stuff like that. But in my opinion, having a trigger that's, obviously not 10 pounds and stuff like that, but something like this, a stock Glock trigger is even perfect. This Mossberg, in my opinion, because of the shape of it, is what I meant is so perfect. One, the shape of it. Two, I can get a gloved finger in there, and there's enough weight on that trigger that with a gloved finger, once it's in there, that thing's not going to go off. The problem with something like this Bursa is, if I get a gloved finger in there, right? Look how tiny that is. By the time my glove finger's there, that thing's just going off. This is a 3-pound trigger. So for me, in self-defense, what I would recommend is anywhere from 4.5 to 6 pounds. I don't care what people say. 4.5 to 6 pounds. The CZ P10M trigger is heavier, but it's crisp. I'm more about is it a good trigger, right? You can have a trigger that's a little bit heavier, but it's very crisp and it's predictable. That is the main thing. When you're in a self-defense encounter, it's going to all come down to muscle memory and stuff like that. And on top of that, being able to predict when that trigger is going to go off, right? Because chances are your finger is going to be on that trigger. If you're on target, you need to know when that thing is going to go off. And something like this, nice crisp reset, but it still has weight to it. Trust me, I don't want to be freaking out, checking my, surroundings, my directions, the threat's down, but we don't know if he's still, it's just going to be chaos. You want as minimal chance of being able to set that trigger off on accident. And I love my Bursa PP9cc, and I probably should train with it more. But the one thing I also don't like about it is there is no dingus on it, like I said. And that trigger is so light. When you go to reholster, let's say the self-defense encounter is over, and you go to reholster, it's going to take nothing to set that trigger off if it gets snagged on anything. But I do love the Bursa BP9C. I love the thinness of it. I love the shootability. Yes, it's a single stack, but Bursa knocked it out of the park with this firearm, and for the price, it's absolutely great. I just wish they would have done something different with that trigger, or even a manual safety for some people, but it came with a rail. It's thinner than a Glock 43. It's about the same size as a Glock 43X. It's just a good overall fire. But for me, a perfect trigger lies somewhere in between here. And like I said, throw a connector in your Glock trigger. It's not to make it 3.5 pounds, because that's ridiculous, but it's to make it crisper, more predictable, and lighter. And the Avenger is self-cleaning. The Glock OEM connector is not self-cleaning. So when you have a self-cleaning connector, that's going to ensure the more rounds and stuff that you're putting through it, and you're maybe not cleaning that area as well, it's going to be clean. I shot 2,000 rounds through my other Glock 26 without cleaning it. The one part that was mostly clean, it wasn't 100%, but mostly clean, was that Ghost connector, the Ghost Avenger. It was absolutely amazing. It was a great test that I ran and absolutely loved it. So for pocket carry, I like a heavier trigger. For everyday carry, just a normal trigger. Nothing special. But there are some other aftermarket brands that I would throw on my firearm. So Wheaton Arms makes a great everyday carry trigger. It doesn't make it super light or anything like that, unless you get the competition trigger, but it just gives it a good shape. Once again, a flat face trigger. Adds more room so you can get a glove finger in there and have less room for error of accidentally pulling that trigger. But once again, tightens everything up, loosens everything up, makes everything a little shorter, a little crisper. But then there's other triggers out there like the Timney Alpha trigger that I have, and I would never carry that for everyday carry. It's just too good. And yes, you're going to say, oh, why not have the best trigger for everyday carry? Like I just said, under stress, under adrenaline, the last thing you need is a negligent discharge, especially if your self-defense encounter was justified. That's going to hurt you in the end. It just is what it is. And on top of that, if you train with a 5.5 pound trigger, you're going to get good with a 5.5 pound trigger. It just is what it is. Hope you guys like the videos. Thanks for watching.